My audio cut off when I tried to show it to when I tried to present it. So, um, well, I want to read it to you, but I want to make sure my what do you call it? Microphone is up to speed when presenting this information to the um. All right, so without further ado, is this even presenting the live screen like I hope it was? Minor parties say New York State budget provision unfairly weakens them. This was written by Karen Dwett on April 4th of 2020. And let me see if it's going through. Hold on. Hold on, Smokey. Uh, no live feed. Hmm. Oh, there we go. There's the live feed. Does it show what I'm doing? All right, yeah, so I can hear myself. That's good. That's what I wanted in this live stream was for me to be able to share this screen and then be able to read this and show it to you this particular article, and I don't know if it's from a conservative website or a liberal website or whatever, but it's by WAMC, the Northeast Public Radio. The title reads Minor Parties Say New York State Budget Provision Unfairly Weakens Them, and it was written by Karen Dwett. Dewitt was published onto the site on April 4th of 2020, and it basically reads when New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and state lawmakers approved the state budget this week, they slipped in a provision to permit public campaign financing for elections in future years. But critics say the plan was designed to weaken minor political parties, including the Progressive Worker Families Party, which has a long running feud with Cuomo. The public campaign financing measure has a history last year when the governor and legislature could not agree on the specifics of a program. They appointed a commission to work out the details. That commission, steered by allies of Governor Cuomo in November, came up with a public matching fund system that would begin for legislative candidates in 2024 and statewide offices, including governor, in 2026. But it also made it more difficult for third parties to gain access to the ballot. For decades, any minor party that received 50,000 votes in a statewide election year automatically qualified to be on the ballot for all elections for the next 4 years. Automat Now parties have to requalify every 2 years, and that requirement and thus the requirements will be steeper. 1,000 or 130,000 votes or 2%, whichever is higher. So 130,000 votes or 2%, whichever is higher. So it doesn't list out all the requirements for minor parties, but it lists that. Two minor parties sued, actually four if you include the Green Libertarian parties, purposes of what it says, two minor parties sued, if you can believe that. And in March, a Supreme Court judge agreed that the changes were unconstitutional and threw out the changes because the legislature did not act to approve them. In the budget completed in the early morning hours on April 3rd, lawmakers fixed that by voting to enact all the commission's recommendations. Um, Many who did not vote for the measure did so reluctantly, including State Senator Liz Krueger, a Democrat who says she's a supporter of public financing for campaigns. Yeah, if it includes her campaigns and the Democrats and the Republicans and all that. So let's see what else it says. Um, Senator Andrew Lanza, a Republican, objected to the provision. He says in the midst of the pandemic and resulting major deficit, it's not the time to enact a program to use taxpayer money to fund political campaigns. Well, there's never a correct time for that. But ultimately, that's one of my big objections with this law, and also the fact that it's now made so difficult for political third parties to get on the ballot, at least because of that. But I guess let me see if I can finish reading it here. People are dying, are losing their jobs, businesses are folding, said Lanza during a debate on April 1st. That ought not to be a reason for politicians to figure out a way to give themselves a little welfare, a little extra money in their campaign coffers. Pandemic be damned. Many who did vote for the measure, blah, blah, blah. So I read that part. It goes on to say that the progressive leaning Working Families Party, which along with the state's conservative party successfully sued over the issues. Says it's all about long running feud with Cuomo. The party in 2018 initially endorsed actor Cynthia Nixon, Cuomo's 2018 Democratic governor primary rival. The Workers' Family Party executive director Sohi Nai whatever says it's about Cuomo taking advantage of time, public distraction to settle scores and to limit and weaken those who he sees as his political opponents. She says the legislator had to, along with the governor who is completely running the show. Says however it is you pronounce her name, says New York is now alone in requiring minor parties to requalify for ballot access every 2 years instead of every 4 years, and goes against nationwide trend towards easing ballot restrictions. She says the party is considering going back to court. The law is on our side, she said. We feel strongly that if we pursue legal action, we will again in court. So she's saying we legal action we will again in court. The Conservative Party also criticized the measure, saying it's a power grab by Cuomo that will eliminate political opposition and dissenting speech. Cuomo and his aides have consistently denied that revenge and a motive for stricter requirements for third parties. Well, you know what? I think that is Governor Cuomo's big requirement or motive, so to speak, is to make it difficult for political third parties to get on the ballot so that he and the Democrats can continue to run the show here in New York and potentially the Republicans if they win. So he's just setting the stage for more authoritarian BS, or bullshit, if you will. And he says the recommendations were developed by a panel of experts on the commission, and says the initial findings were approved last December by representatives from the legislature and the governor. So last December, apparently the legislator and the governor approved it. Yeah, that's why you came up with the campaign finance commission. Yeah, I have a hard time believing exactly what that article is saying is in its entirety, but here's what's going on. So I can give you a big picture here. Governor Andrew Cuomo last year, uh, between him and the legislator, legislative leaders, if you will, made because they couldn't agree on specifics, appointed this commission. This commission, known as the Campaign Finance Commission, made these so-called changes in rules and laws and structure to the state in this to take the place. I guess to change the apparatus of the law and because and I guess it was struck down by the courts in the Supreme Court in New York because here in New York State because the legislator did not act to approve the measure and it was made by unelected bureaucrats and not the state legislator. So because the laws were not lawfully passed, therefore it was unconstitutional and therefore illegal. And so what does Cuomo do? Well, he now, um, I guess he decided to sneak it in the budget, and the budget passed as of last week. So we're kind of in limbo at this point, but I guess this is the. But on the bright side, Larry Sharp did say we as libertarians can turn this to our advantage, and if we gain enough support in accordance to these requirements, we may end up being the only other third party besides the Conservative Party, which for us is good, besides the Democrats and the Republicans, because that means a stronger support base. But if you favor an overall broader free speech initiative, and you want more voices, this is not a way to go about doing it. But we'll have to see how the courts handle it because it's up in the air at this point in terms of whether if anybody decides to seek legal challenges, it may just be to withhold it for 2 years and then let the rules take effect as they may. But either that or they may sue to have it struck down again under with but it would be hard to do so if being the case that it was passed by the legislator this time. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Um, but yeah, it is authoritarian. It is the biggest piece of garbage that I've ever seen, and this is the price